Hello Math 140 students, this is your instructor Cindy Enrique and we will continue our lecture on chapter 7. So for now, we will continue with section 7.3, which is adding and subtracting rational expressions with the same denominator. So that same denominator, we are going to have different rules when it's different denominators. So please make sure that you understand that these are fractions with the same denominator. When it has the same denominator, what we do is we just add or subtract the numerators and you leave the denominator alone. So I know I'm going to leave the denominator alone, which is 14, and up on top I'm going to add 5 plus 1. So if I add 5 plus 1, that gives me a 6. But remember, you have to reduce this fraction. So 6 and 14, they have a 2 in common, so that reduces to a 3 over 7 as your final answer. Okay, so you can think of it as I divided by 2 to simplify my fraction to give me a 3/7. Or you can just plug it into your calculator. Remember, calculators are allowed on your lectures. And it will reduce your fraction to a 3/7 if you were to do it on the calculator. Now for part B, it's subtraction, but it's the same process. So I know I leave the denominator alone. And I'm going to have my 4 minus my 8. Now 4 minus 8 is negative 4. So my final answer is negative 4 over 15. For part C, it's the same process. I'm still going to have this equal to the same denominator, which happens to be 14. But now I have a 5x plus x. And if you want, you can think of that x as having a 1. So you can see that 5x plus 1x is a 6x. And what's nice about this is you can see this as a 6 over 14, which is the same that you had over here. So you know it's going to reduce to a 3 over 7. So then your final answer, you're going to have a 3 over 7. And don't forget that x was up in your numerator. And for our next example, part D, we have the same denominator. That's going to be my y plus 5. And so my numerator, because I go whatever the sign tells me to do, so I'm going to have a y minus a 3. And that's as far as you can go for that problem. Nothing can cancel. You can think of it as y is being attached by 3, and this y is attached with a 5. So you cannot cancel out those y's because you have a subtract 3 and you have a plus 5. Alright, so for letter E, I'm going to have the same thing. I have the same denominator, so perfect, 4n plus 5. That is my denominator. Now in my numerator, I have a 16n squared. It's being subtracted by 25. Well, I know that 4 times 4 is 16, and that 5 times 5 is 25. So these are perfect square roots. So this is going to reduce to a, let me get the right color here. This is going to reduce to a 4n plus 5 and a 4n minus 5, since it's a perfect square root, and that's the conjugate pairs. And down at the bottom, I have the 4n plus 5. So I can go ahead and simplify. So the 4n's plus 5's cancel. So I'm left with 4n minus 5 over 1, which is the same as just 4n minus 5. So I'm going to write that as my final answer. Now, down at the bottom, not at the bottom, but the next problem, letter F, I'm going to deal with my numerators, but the most important thing is, hey, let's check the denominators. I have 2x to the third minus 18x, and I have 2x to the third minus 18x. Perfect. The denominators are the same. So at the very least, I'm going to have a 2x cubed minus 18x because it's the exact same denominator. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to write the first numerator. That was the 4x squared plus 9x plus 1. And I have adding, so I'm going to add. Now I'm going to add that second fraction. So I'm going to have a 6x squared plus 23rd x plus 5. So I'm just going to rewrite it so it's in descending order. So I have the 4x squared. I have the positive 6x squared. I have a positive 9x. I have a positive 23x. I have a positive 1. And I have a positive 5. And down at the bottom, I still have that 2x cubed minus 18x. So now, looking at this, I can simplify my numerator. So 4 plus 6, that gives me my 10x squared. Next, I'm going to have 9 plus 23, and that's going to be 32x, and 5 plus 1, which is 6. And down at the bottom, I have the 2x cubed minus 18x. Now, in my numerator, I can see that I can factor something out. If I have 10, 32, and 6, it looks like I can cancel out a 2, or a GCF of 2. So now I'm going to have a 5x squared plus 32 divided by 2 is 16. And 6 divided by 2 is 3. And down at the bottom, it looks like I have a 2x as a GCF, so I'm left with an x squared minus 9. And this can definitely factor further. So I still have that 2, it's hanging out. And I have a 5x and an x. 3 and 1 gives me a positive 3. So 15x and 1x is a 16x, so that's how that factors. And don't forget you have a difference of squares, so you have an x plus 3 and an x minus 3. So now that everything is fully factored, I can cancel everything out. And just to make sure, hopefully you guys noticed that was a plus there, okay? So I know that this x plus 3 cancels with that x plus 3. That 2 cancels out with that 2. And I think that's it. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight everything that survived so I don't forget it. So there's a lot going on. So I want to make sure I write my final answer. So I'm going to have a 5x plus 1 over x times x minus 3. As my final answer. Okay. So remember, with addition and subtraction, you combine the numerator first, then you go into factoring. So order really matters here. Alright, so we have some practice problems for you guys to do on your own. So we have a few practice problems. It looks like about 5. So this is where you get on your computer and you press pause. Okay, well, I hope you guys had enough time with the practice problems. So what I ended up doing is, for number 1, I got an x over 3. For practice problem number 1, I got x over 3. For number 2, that subtracting negative ends up becoming a positive. So just remember that whenever you have two negative numbers, a subtraction with a negative, it turns into addition. So then 3 plus 2 is 5 over my w. For number 3, you had to be really careful. That subtraction sign in the middle means to subtract everything in the numerator. So it's a negative 4u and a negative 6. So this is really important to see how that negative gets distributed to the 4 and the 6. It gets distributed to everything in the numerator. Therefore, it was negative here and negative here as well. So combining like terms, 19 minus 4 gave me a 15, and the 6 minus 6 gave me a 0. That canceled out. And then 15 divided by 5 is 3, and the u divided by u cancels out. For number 4, that numerator, when I combine it together, is x plus 7. The denominator is the same, which is perfect. I have an x squared minus 49. That's a difference of squares. The square root of 49 is 7, so that's an x plus 7 and x minus 7. Everything canceled in the numerator, so when everything cancels in the numerator, your default or your placeholder is going to be a 1. And for number 5, you have subtraction, so you want to be careful again. That's where we distribute that negative sign. So we take that negative and we distribute it to the u as well as the 14. So I have a negative a negative 2v and a negative 14. So this is where my negative comes from distributing that subtraction sign from the step above. So now combining like terms, I have v squared minus 2v, and then I have a positive 6 and a negative 14. Then I factor out the fraction. When I factor it, I see that they both have a v plus 2, and I'm able to cancel it out. And that is the end of section 7.3. If you guys have any questions, please email me.